God's chosen ones, God said, "Until you do this one thing, no door will ever open." Are you tired of praying the same prayers and hearing nothing but silence? Have you been knocking on doors that refuse to budge while watching others walk through theirs effortlessly? Do you wake up each morning wondering if God has forgotten your address, if your breakthrough got lost in heaven's mail? Chosen one, if you're hearing these words right now, stop, put down whatever you're doing. This is not another religious video that accidentally appeared in your feed. This is a divine interruption. Heaven just hijacked your scroll because your spirit has been crying out for answers, and God is about to respond. You didn't stumble onto this message. You were summoned here, by name, by divine appointment. This is your burning bush moment disguised as a casual click. Here's a shocking truth that will shatter everything you thought you knew about breakthrough. You've been standing in front of the right door your entire life. The door to your destiny, your calling, your miracle. It's been there all along. But it won't open. Not because God is cruel, not because you're unworthy, but because you haven't done the one thing that unlocks it. The same God who parted the Red Sea for Moses, who opened prison doors for Paul, who rolled away the stone for Jesus. That same God has been whispering something to your spirit, something you've been avoiding, something that feels too hard, too scary, too vulnerable. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. But listen carefully, what I'm about to reveal will disturb every comfortable prayer you've ever prayed. It will challenge every "maybe someday" excuse you've whispered to yourself in the dark. If something in your spirit is already stirring, if you feel that holy fire burning in your chest, type 999 in the comments right now. That's not superstition. That's spiritual agreement. That's you telling heaven, I'm ready to hear the hard truth. Because God is not waiting for your perfection. He's not waiting for you to get your life together. He's waiting for you to do this one thing, this one act of obedience that will make every closed door in your life swing wide open. Until you do it, no door will ever open. And chosen one, your time is running out. Why does it feel like God answers everyone's prayers except yours? Why do you watch others walk effortlessly through doors that remain sealed shut in your face? Why has your breakthrough been just around the corner for what feels like a lifetime? Chosen one, I need you to hear something that might sting at first, but will ultimately set you free. That silence you've been interpreting as rejection, it's not what you think. That delay you've been calling abandonment, it's actually preservation. And those unanswered prayers you've been questioning, they're being held in heaven's vault until you become the person who can handle the answer. You see, dear one, you've been knocking on a door that's voice activated, but it only responds to the right frequency, the right version of you. And until that version emerges, the door remains sealed, not to punish you, but to protect what's waiting on the other side. Let me paint you a picture that will shatter every assumption you've made about God's timing. Right now, as you listen to these words, there's a warehouse in heaven with your name on it. Inside that warehouse are blessings so massive, so precisely calibrated to your destiny, that if you received them in your current state of spiritual development, they would crush you under their weight. God isn't withholding your breakthrough because He's forgotten you. He's withholding it because He loves you too much to give you something that would destroy you. Think about Moses. For 40 years, he wandered in a wilderness that could have been crossed in 11 days. 40 years. Can you imagine the questions he must have asked? God, did I mishear your voice? Did I take a wrong turn somewhere? Why are we still circling the same mountain? But here's what Moses didn't understand in the wilderness. God wasn't punishing him. God was preparing an entire generation for a promise they weren't yet ready to receive. The Israelites who left Egypt couldn't enter Canaan, not because the promise wasn't real, but because they carried slave mentalities into free territory. They needed to die to who they were before they could live as who they were called to be. Consider David. After Samuel anointed him as king, did he immediately take the throne? No. He spent years running for his life, hiding in caves, sleeping on cold stone floors, while King Saul hunted him like an animal. Can you hear David's midnight cries? God, you said I was chosen. You said I was anointed. So why am I living like a fugitive? But every night in those caves, God was chiseling away the shepherd boy's limitations. Every moment of uncertainty was building the king's unshakable faith. David couldn't rule a kingdom until he learned to rule his own spirit in the darkness. And Joseph, 17 years old with a dream from heaven, God showed him visions of greatness, of bowing sheaves and bowing stars. But then came the pit, the betrayal, the false accusations. 13 years in prison for crimes he never committed. 13 years of wondering if God's promises were just cruel jokes. But here's the revelation that will rock your world. Joseph's prison wasn't his punishment, it was his university. Every year of suffering was a semester in divine preparation, because the boy who had dreams couldn't rule Egypt. Only the man who had been broken and rebuilt by God's own hands could carry that kind of authority. Revelation 3-7 declares, "What he opens no one can shut, and what he shuts no one can open." Did you catch that? When God shuts a door, it's not because you're unworthy. It's because he's protecting something sacred on the other side. And when he opens it, no force in hell can slam it shut again. But here's where it gets personal, chosen one. What if every no you've received wasn't rejection, but redirection? What if every delayed answer wasn't God ignoring you, but God preparing you? What if this season of silence isn't abandonment, but the sound of heaven's construction crew building something in your life that requires absolute precision? Jeremiah 29-11 promises, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future." Notice it says, "I know the plans," not, "I'll figure them out as we go." God has already calculated every variable, every delay, every detour. He's not confused about your timeline, you are. Right now, some of you are sitting in your own wilderness, your own cave, your own prison. You've been faithful, you've been praying, you've been believing, but nothing seems to move. The same bills keep coming, the same relationship patterns keep repeating, the same doors keep slamming in your face. And you're starting to wonder, did I miss God? Am I being punished for something? Have I been disqualified from his blessings? Listen to me carefully. Your life hasn't been delayed, it's been preserved. God didn't say no to your prayers. He said, "Not like that, not until you become who the next door was built for." Every champion athlete knows this truth. Before you can lift heavy weights, you must build the muscle capacity to handle them. Before you can run a marathon, you must develop the endurance to sustain the distance. God operates by the same principle in the spiritual realm. Before he releases the blessing, he builds the character to carry it. You've been asking God to open doors, but he's been asking you a different question. Are you ready for what's behind them? Because once certain doors open, they can never close again. Once you step into certain levels of anointing, authority, and influence, you can never go back to the comfortable anonymity of your former life. If you've felt stuck in a holding pattern, if you've been circling the same mountain for years, If you've been wondering when your season will change, I want you to type these words in the comments right now. I'm still waiting, but I believe. Because this is your moment of choice, chosen one. Will you interpret God's silence as rejection, or will you recognize it as the sound of heaven's preparation room? Will you let delay become discouragement, or will you let it become deeper consecration? The door you've been praying about isn't broken, it's not locked, it's not being withheld from you. It's waiting for the right frequency, the right voice, the right version of you. And that version is closer than you think. Chosen one, what if I told you that every prayer you've ever prayed, every tear you've ever cried, every door that's remained locked in your life, all of it comes down to one thing. Not your faith, not your works, not how hard you try or how perfect you become. The one thing God is waiting for will shock you. It will offend your flesh. It will challenge everything you thought you knew about breakthrough. God is not asking for better behavior. He's not waiting for you to clean up your act or get your life together first. He's not impressed by your religious performance or your Sunday morning show. Here's the truth that will disturb your comfort zone. God is asking for your death, the death of who you think you are, the death of who you've always been, the death of the version of yourself that's been trying so hard to earn what grace already purchased. You see, you've been standing at that door with the wrong key. You've been knocking with hands that belong to someone God doesn't recognize anymore, because the person He called, the person He chose, that person died the moment you tried to do this thing called life in your own strength. Listen to me carefully. Romans 12:2 says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." But the Greek word for transformed isn't just changed or improved. It's metamorphotha, same word used when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. Think about that for a moment. A caterpillar doesn't grow wings and learn to fly. It doesn't take flying lessons or practice harder. It dies, completely, utterly. Every cell in its body dissolves. And from that death, from that total surrender to the process, something entirely new is born. God isn't asking for a makeover, dear one. He's requiring metamorphosis. But here's where most people stop. They want the wings without the cocoon. They want the resurrection without the crucifixion. They want to be born again while still holding on to who they used to be. You cannot upgrade your old life. You cannot renovate your past self. You cannot put new wine into old wineskins. The old you with all its fears, its pride, its need to control, its desperate hunger for approval, that version cannot walk through the door God has prepared. Why? Because God is not punishing you. He's protecting the blessing from the version of you that couldn't carry it. Look at Joyce Meyer. For years, she lived as a victim, wounded, angry, controlled by her painful past. But the moment she surrendered that identity, the moment she let the victim die, God birthed a warrior who would heal millions. The door to her destiny didn't open for the broken Joyce. It opened for the surrendered one. Consider Tyler Perry. He spent years homeless, sleeping in his car, clinging to his dreams with white knuckles. But breakthrough came when he stopped trying to make it happen and started letting God make it happen. The door didn't open for the striving Tyler, it opened for the yielded one. And what about Saul? Brilliant, religious, passionate, but completely wrong. He had to die on the Damascus road, literally blinded, stripped of everything he thought made him valuable. And from that death, Paul was born. The door to apostleship didn't open for Saul the Pharisee, it opened for Paul the surrendered. Do you see the pattern? The door only recognizes the new you, not the improved you, not the cleaned up you, the dead to self, alive in Christ you. But here's what terrifies most people. Surrender feels like losing everything. It feels like dying because it is. Your ego will scream, your flesh will fight. Every survival instinct will tell you to hold on, to stay in control, to keep trying harder. That's the voice that's been keeping your door locked. How long have you been exhausted from carrying burdens God never asked you to lift? How many years have you spent trying to prove yourself to a God who already chose you? How much energy have you wasted trying to earn what's already been freely given? The old you is tired, isn't it? Tired of performing, tired of pretending, tired of fighting battles God already won, tired of trying to be strong enough, good enough, worthy enough. What if I told you that the very thing you're afraid to let go of is the only thing standing between you and everything you've ever wanted? What if your greatest fear, losing control, looking weak, being vulnerable, what if that's actually your greatest breakthrough waiting to happen? God has been standing at that door for years, waiting, not for you to get it right, not for you to become perfect. He's waiting for you to get out of the way, to step aside and let him be God in your life. Here's the shocking truth. Every door that's been closed to you has been closed to the wrong person, the person trying to earn it, the person trying to deserve it, the person still operating from wounds instead of wholeness. But there's a version of you that every door in heaven recognizes, a version that walks in such complete surrender, such total trust, that the supernatural becomes natural. A version that doesn't beg for breakthrough because it knows who its father is. That version is waiting to be born. But first, the old version has to die. And here's what most people don't understand. God isn't asking for your perfection. He's asking for your permission. Permission to kill off everything in you that isn't him. Permission to strip away every false identity, every coping mechanism, every wall you've built to protect yourself. The question is, are you finally ready to stop fighting the funeral? Say it aloud right now. God, if you want the old me to die, I won't fight the funeral, because on the other side of that surrender, chosen one, every door you've ever dreamed of is waiting to swing wide open. Chosen one, we've talked about transformation, but let's get brutally honest about what that actually costs. Because here's what the prosperity preachers won't tell you, what the feel-good sermons avoid, what your comfortable Christianity has been dancing around for decades. Something in you has to die before anything new can live. You've been trying to renovate a house that needs to be demolished. You've been putting fresh paint on rotting wood, new curtains over broken windows, expecting God to bless a foundation that's crumbling beneath your feet. But heaven doesn't work that way. God isn't interested in upgrading your dysfunction. He's calling for complete reconstruction. Listen to me careful. You cannot fly with grave clothes still wrapped around your wings. Right now, I want you to stop and ask yourself this uncomfortable question. What version of yourself are you protecting that God is asking you to bury? Because I guarantee you, there's something. There's always something. That thing you've been calling just who I am might actually be the very thing that's keeping every door in your life sealed shut. Maybe it's the version of you that needs to control every outcome because trusting God feels too risky. Maybe it's the perfectionist in you that refuses to move until every detail is mapped out, every guarantee is signed, every possible failure is eliminated. Or maybe it's that wounded part of you that's been nursing resentment like a sacred flame, convinced that your bitterness is justified, that your unforgiveness is somehow protecting you. Here's what's really happening. You've become emotionally attached to your own prison cell. You've decorated your limitations so beautifully that you've forgotten they're still limitations. You've made peace with the very things that are suffocating your destiny. Jesus said it plainly in Luke 9:23. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Daily. Not once at salvation, not when it's convenient. Every single day, something in you must die so something greater can live. But let's talk about what specifically needs to die, because general statements won't set you free. Let's name the chains that have been masquerading as personality traits. First, That spirit of fear that's been making every decision for you. That voice that says, what if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if people judge me? That's not wisdom. That's the enemy of your destiny speaking through your own mouth. Fear has convinced you that playing it safe is spiritual, but playing it safe when God has called you to move is actually rebellion disguised as wisdom. Second, that perfectionism that's been paralyzing your progress for years. You've been waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect confidence level before you obey God. But perfection is just pride wearing a suit and tie. It's the sophisticated way of saying, I don't trust God's timing, while sounding spiritually mature. Third, that need to control every variable in your life. You've been trying to be both the clay and the potter, both the sheep and the shepherd, but you cannot steer your life from the passenger seat of surrender. Control is just fear dressed up as responsibility, and it's been choking the life out of your faith for decades. And fourth, this might sting that resentment you've been carrying like a badge of honor. That unforgiveness you've been feeding daily, that hurt you've been rehearsing like a Broadway show. You think holding on to that pain makes you strong, but it's actually making you spiritually anemic. Resentment is just poison you drink, hoping someone else will die. Now here's where this gets personal, chosen one. Right now, in this moment, I want you to silence everything around you and listen to what the Holy Spirit is whispering about your specific situation. What is He pointing to in your life that needs to go to the grave? What attitude, what habit, what identity has been surviving when it should have been buried years ago? Some of you are trying to drag your cocoon into flight. But butterflies don't crawl, they fly. The caterpillar doesn't graduate to become a flying caterpillar. It dies completely so something entirely new can emerge. And that's what God is requiring of you right now. Not improvement, not modification, but death and resurrection. This is why your breakthrough has been delayed. Not because God is testing your patience, but because you've been trying to take your old self into your new season. You've been attempting to carry yesterday's survival mechanisms into tomorrow's assignment. But the door to your next level is too narrow for both the old you and the new you to walk through together. The person who's been making excuses for 20 years cannot be the same person who steps into divine purpose. The person who's been playing victim cannot be the same person who walks in victory. The person who's been choosing comfort over calling cannot be the same person who carries kingdom authority. Something has to die, and you get to choose what. Here's your moment of truth, chosen one. I'm going to ask you to do something that might feel uncomfortable, but it's necessary for your breakthrough. I want you to type in the comments right now, here's what I'm letting die today, and then be honest about what God is asking you to release. You're not typing for me. You're not performing for this audience. You're testifying to God. You're making a public declaration that you're ready to let go of what's been holding you back. Because until you're willing to bury what's dead, you'll never have room for what's trying to be born. The question is, are you ready to attend your own funeral so you can finally live? Listen to me, chosen one. That door you've been staring at, praying over, crying about it, wasn't built for who you are right now. It was custom designed for who you're becoming. And until you become that person, that door will remain as sealed as Pharaoh's tomb. Here's what's breaking my heart. You've been trying to squeeze your old self through a doorframe designed for your new identity. Like trying to pour new wine into old wineskins, it doesn't work. It can't work. The old you and the new assignment are incompatible. The old you whispers, I'm not qualified. The new you declares, God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. The old you sees obstacles. The new you sees assignments. The old you asks, what if I fail? The new you asks, what if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams? Scripture tells us in Ephesians 4:22-24, put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires. Be made new in the attitude of your minds, and put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. Did you catch that? Put off the old self. This isn't about improvement, this is about replacement. God isn't asking you to become a better version of your trauma. He's asking you to become a completely new creation. And here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school. This transformation is violent, beautiful but violent. Like a phoenix burning in its own nest, the old you must die for the new you to rise. You can't have resurrection without crucifixion. You can't have breakthrough without breakdown. That restlessness you feel, that's not anxiety, that's anticipation. Your spirit knows something your mind hasn't figured out yet. You're pregnant with your next season, and birth is coming whether you're ready or not. The new you doesn't beg for opportunities. Opportunities chase after the new you. The new you doesn't explain why you deserve the blessing. You simply steward it with humility and excellence. The new you doesn't panic when criticized you. Discern what's conviction from God and what's projection from people. I need you to understand something that will shock you. You're not behind schedule. You're not too late. You're not too old, too broken, or too far gone. You're right on time for God's perfect plan. That door has been waiting for the person you're becoming, not mourning for the person you used to be. Think about the caterpillar for a moment. When it enters the cocoon, it doesn't just grow wings. Its entire body dissolves into supliteral cellular soup before being reconstructed into something that can fly. If someone cracked open that cocoon mid-process, they wouldn't find a caterpillar with wings. They'd find unrecognizable liquid. That's where you are right now. In the soup stage, feeling dissolved, unrecognizable, confused about your identity. But God is rebuilding you from the inside out. Every disappointment was dissolving old patterns. Every closed door was protecting you from settling for less than His best. The new you prays differently. Instead of begging, you're believing. Instead of pleading, you're decreeing. Instead of hoping something might happen, you're declaring what will happen because you know whose you are. 2 Corinthians 5:17 settles this once and for all. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. Not coming, not maybe, not if you're good enough, is here. Present tense. The new you already exists in the spirit realm. You just need to step into that identity. You know why people don't recognize you anymore, why old friends feel distant, why certain conversations drain you now. Because you're transitioning. You're becoming someone the old environment can't contain. Don't fight it, celebrate it. You're outgrowing spaces that were never meant to hold your destiny. The new you speaks differently. You don't say, I hope this works out. You say, God is working all things together for my good. You don't say, I'll try my best. You say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You don't say, maybe someday. You say, this is my season. Here's what's about to happen. That door is going to recognize your voice. Not your old voice full of doubt and desperation. Your new voice clear, confident, covenant-backed. The new you doesn't knock on doors begging to be let in. The new you speaks, and doors open by divine command. You're not crazy for feeling different. You're early. You're not too sensitive for this world. You're marked for the next one. You feel too much because you carry too much. You see too clearly because you're being prepared to lead others out of darkness. Stop apologizing for your intensity. Stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. Stop explaining your standards to people who've settled for less. The new you doesn't shrink to fit old spaces, you expand into new territories. Write this down right now. I am the new me, and this door will know my voice. Say it out loud. Let your spirit hear your voice agreeing with heaven's declaration over your life. That door isn't waiting for you to get perfect. It's waiting for you to get aligned. It's waiting for you to stop trying to be who you were and start being who you are. But here's the question that will determine everything. Are you ready to let the old you die so the new you can live? Because you can't have both. You can't drag your caterpillar mindset into your butterfly season. What you do next will determine which voice that door responds to. You've been standing in front of it your entire life, haven't you? That door. The one you've dreamed about, prayed about, cried about in the silent hours when no one else was watching. You know exactly which door I'm talking about, because it's been haunting your spirit, calling your name, whispering promises of what lies beyond. But here's what's driving you to the edge of despair: it won't open. No matter how hard you push, how loud you knock, how desperately you plead, and you've started to believe the lie that maybe it's not meant for you. Maybe God made a mistake. Maybe you're not chosen after all. Let me shatter that lie right now with a truth that will rearrange your understanding of everything. The door isn't locked, chosen one. It's coded to your transformation. That door represents more than your next job, your next relationship, your next breakthrough. It represents the threshold between who you've been and who God is calling you to become. It's the portal between your wilderness and your promised land, between your pain and your purpose, between surviving and thriving in the fullness of His glory. And here's the part that's going to shake you to your core every time you've approached that door, as the old you, as the wounded you, as the fearful you. It couldn't respond. Not because God is cruel, but because He is wise. He knows that what's waiting on the other side would crush the current version of you under its weight. Revelation 3-7 declares something so powerful it should make you tremble. What He opens, no one can shut, and what He shuts, no one can open. Do you hear that? When God decides it's your time, when you become the person that door was designed for, nothing in hell or earth can keep it closed. Not your past, not your failures, not your enemies, not even your own doubt. But until then, until you transform it, remains sealed. Look at Nelson Mandela. For 27 years, he stared at prison walls, but he never let those walls live in his heart. He used that time to become the leader South Africa needed. When his door finally opened, he didn't walk out as a bitter prisoner. He emerged as a statesman, a healer, a man whose character could carry the weight of a nation's healing. Consider Esther, trembling before the king's court, knowing that one wrong move could cost her life. But she didn't approach that throne room as the scared orphan girl she once was. She approached as a queen who understood her assignment was bigger than her fear. And when she opened her mouth, she didn't just save her people, she changed history. Think about Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, forgotten in prison, watching years slip away while his dreams seemed to mock him from a distance. But God was coding that man for something extraordinary. When Pharaoh's door finally swung open, Joseph didn't stumble through it as a broken victim. He strode through as a visionary, a strategist, a man whose character had been forged in the furnace of injustice and emerged pure gold. And Maya Angelou, silenced by trauma as a child, her voice stolen by pain. But in that silence, God was preparing a voice that would speak for millions. When her door opened, she didn't whisper. She roared with poetry that still shakes souls today. What do they all have in common? They didn't try to force their way through their doors. They became the key. You see, dear one, you've been approaching this all wrong. You've been treating the door like an enemy when it's actually your greatest teacher. Every time it doesn't open, it's not rejecting you, it's revealing what still needs to change. It's showing you the gap between who you are and who you must become. That job you've been praying for, it's not just about income, it's about influence. And God won't give you influence until your character can handle it without corrupting your soul. That relationship you've been longing for, it's not just about companionship, it's about covenant. And God won't give you covenant until you understand your own worth, without needing someone else to validate it. That ministry you've been dreaming about. It's not just about platform, it's about purpose. And God won't give you a platform until your heart is pure enough to point people to Him, not to yourself. The door isn't your enemy. The door is your invitation to evolution. And here's the climactic truth that should set your spirit on fire. God says, I'm not withholding the door. I'm holding it until you arrive. He's not keeping it from you, He's keeping it for you. Until the real you, the healed you, the transformed you shows up. Right now, in this sacred moment, I want you to do something that might feel foolish but is spiritually powerful. Stand up if you can. If you're able, rise to your feet. Lift your hand toward heaven and declare with your voice, not just your thoughts, I am the key, I am the evidence, I am the proof that God is still working miracles. Say it again. I am the key, I am the evidence, I am the proof. Because the door you've been staring at isn't waiting for a perfect you, it's waiting for a surrendered you. A you that stops trying to be someone else's key and starts becoming your own. A you that stops begging God to change the door and starts asking Him to change you. The door is still there. It's been there all along, and it's about to recognize the sound of your transformed voice. But transformation requires something from you that you've been avoiding, something that will make you uncomfortable, vulnerable, and completely dependent on God's grace. Are you ready to discover what that one thing is? You've been knocking on doors for years, haven't you? Career doors, relationship doors, financial doors, healing doors. You've tried every key you could find: prayer, fasting, positive thinking, hard work. You've knocked until your knuckles bled. You've waited until your faith felt thin as paper. But this next door, chosen one, this door to your destiny, it doesn't open with keys. It doesn't respond to your knocking. It doesn't budge when you push harder or pray louder. This door opens through fire. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? Because you've spent your whole life avoiding the flames. You've built your entire existence around comfort, safety, predictability. You've made peace with mediocrity because mediocrity doesn't burn. You've settled for the shallow end because the deep waters look too dangerous. But here's what's going to shock you to your core. The door you've been desperately searching for isn't behind you. It's not beside you. It's not even in front of you. The door you're waiting for is hidden inside the furnace you've been avoiding. Let me take you back 2,600 years to a moment that will redefine everything you think you know about breakthrough. 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, stood before the most powerful king on earth. King Nebuchadnezzar had built a golden statue 90 feet tall and commanded every person in his empire to bow down and worship it. But these 3 young men refused. They wouldn't bend, they wouldn't bow, they wouldn't break. And Nebuchadnezzar was furious. Daniel 3:19 tells us he was so enraged that his facial expression changed, and he ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. 7 times hotter than normal. That's over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot enough to melt copper. Hot enough that the guards who threw them in were killed instantly by the heat. But here's what will stop your heart. When the king looked into that furnace, he didn't see 3 men burning. He saw 4 men walking around freely. And the 4th man, the Bible says, looked like a son of the gods. Jesus himself was in the fire with them. Now listen carefully, because this is where your theology might get uncomfortable. Fire wasn't their punishment. Fire was their promotion. The furnace wasn't their grave. It was their graduation ceremony. You see, for years you've been taught that God wants to keep you out of the fire, that He wants to protect you from every trial, every hardship, every uncomfortable situation. But what if I told you that's not biblical? What if I told you that fire isn't punishment, fire is the birthing room of calling? Think about it. Gold doesn't become pure in a jewelry store, it becomes pure in a furnace. Diamonds aren't formed in comfort, they're created under pressure. Steel isn't strengthened in a workshop, it's forged in flames. And you, chosen one, you are not meant to be decorative. You're meant to be indestructible. But you've been running from the very thing that would make you unstoppable. You've been avoiding the conversation that would set you free. You've been postponing the decision that would launch you into your destiny. You've been circling around the fire instead of walking through it. And God is standing in that fire, waiting for you. He's not asking you to go through it alone. He's asking you to go through it with Him, just like He did with those 3 Hebrew boys, just like He's done with every chosen one who ever made history. Moses had to walk through the fire of Pharaoh's rejection before he could lead a nation to freedom. David had to walk through the fire of Goliath's threats before he could wear a crown. Esther had to walk through the fire of potentially losing her life before she could save her people. The door to their destiny wasn't around the fire, it was through the fire. Now imagine this with me. Close your eyes if you have to. Picture yourself walking toward that thing you've been avoiding, that confrontation, that apology, that leap of faith, that surrender of control. As you get closer, you feel the heat. Your flesh wants to turn back, your mind screams warnings, your emotions beg you to run, but you keep walking. And as you step into the flames, something miraculous happens. Instead of burning, you become luminous. Instead of being consumed, you're transformed. The fire that was meant to destroy you begins to refine you. The heat that was supposed to end you starts to strengthen you. And then you see Him, Jesus, walking right beside you, not watching from a distance, not cheering from the sidelines, walking with you, step by step, through the very thing that terrified you. You emerge from that fire not as a victim, but as a victor, not scarred, but sanctified, not broken, but brilliant like gold. The 3 Hebrew boys came out of that furnace, and the Bible says they didn't even smell like smoke. Their hair wasn't singed, their clothes weren't burned. The only thing the fire destroyed was the ropes that had bound them. Do you understand what this means for your life right now? The fire you're avoiding isn't going to destroy you, it's going to deliver you. It's going to burn away everything that's holding you back and leave you free. You won't be destroyed in the fire. You'll be discovered. The real you, the brave you, the anointed you, the you that's been hiding behind fear and excuses and what-if scenarios. That version of you can only be found in the furnace. So stop running. Stop making excuses. Stop telling God you'll obey Him tomorrow when you feel more ready. Tomorrow is a luxury you can't afford. Your destiny is on fire, and the door is getting hotter by the minute. Type this in faith right now. I'll walk into what I used to run from. Because on the other side of that fire isn't just breakthrough, it's the version of you that breakthrough was always meant to reveal. But first, you have to be willing to burn. Chosen one, let me tell you something that's going to shatter every lie the enemy has whispered about your past. You've been carrying shame about seasons that were actually your greatest qualification. You've been apologizing for scars that are actually your credentials. That abandonment you felt when your church family turned their backs on you. That wasn't rejection, that was selection. God was removing everyone who couldn't handle the weight of your calling. That betrayal that left you bleeding in the parking lot of your own sanctuary. Heaven was clearing the stage so only the real intercessors would remain standing when your breakthrough arrived. You buried a spouse while still smiling for others, didn't you? Stood at that graveside and felt the earth beneath your feet crack open, yet somehow found the strength to comfort everyone else's grief while yours suffocated in silence. You think that was cruel? That was preparation. God was teaching you how to carry other people's pain without breaking under the weight of your own. Maybe you were the child who raised your siblings because addiction stole your parents. Maybe you were the teenager who worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on while your friends worried about prom dates. You thought you were being punished. You were being prepared. Here's what Job didn't understand in his suffering, and what you're just now beginning to see. The fire wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to authenticate you. 1 Peter 1-7 tells us that trials come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor. God didn't abandon you in that fire. He sealed you in it. Like a blacksmith forging a sword, every strike of the hammer, every blast of heat, every moment you thought you couldn't take another second, that was divine craftsmanship. He was making you unbreakable for what's coming. You know why some people crumble under pressure while others rise? It's not personality, it's preparation. Some people have been microwaved by life-quick heat, but no depth. But you, chosen one, you've been slow-cooked in the furnace of affliction. You've been seasoned by suffering until your faith became fireproof. Think about Corrie ten Boom, locked in a concentration camp, watching her sister die in front of her eyes. The Nazis tortured her body, but they couldn't touch her spirit. Years later, she stood face to face with one of her captors and forgave him. That forgiveness didn't come from a Sunday school lesson. It came from fire that had burned away everything except love. Or consider Johnny Cash, the man in black, who sang from the depths of addiction and prison walls. His voice carried such authority when he sang about redemption because he had been redeemed from the pit. When he performed at Folsom Prison, those hardened criminals wept because they heard their own story in his scars. The difference between testimony and theory: fire. The difference between preaching and prophecy: pressure. The difference between inspiration and impartation: intensity. You think God was absent during your darkest nights. He was there, but he wasn't rescuing you. He was refining you. Daniel 3:25 describes Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. But I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods. The 4th man in your fire wasn't there to put it out. He was there to walk through it with you. And when you came out, you didn't smell like smoke, because his presence had preserved you from the inside out. Every person who ever carried true spiritual authority has this in common. They all went through seasons where God's silence felt louder than his voice, where his presence felt more absent than his promises. But that silence wasn't abandonment, it was incubation. You know what separates leaders from followers? Leaders have been broken and rebuilt so many times that their foundation is no longer their own strength, it's his faithfulness. They've learned to lean on something stronger than their emotions, deeper than their circumstances, more reliable than their understanding. That's why God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And the equipping process isn't gentle, it's intensive, it's fire. Right now, there are people watching this who are still in their furnace season. You're wondering if the heat is ever going to turn down, if the pressure is ever going to ease up. Let me speak prophetically into your situation. The temperature is about to change, but not because the fire is going out, because you're finally fireproof. Isaiah 43:2 promises, "When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you." That's not just survival, that's supernatural preservation. You weren't just burned, you were branded by heaven. Every scar tells a story of God's faithfulness. Every wound proves you were worth preserving. Every tear you cried in secret was collected in his bottle and will be poured out as oil for your anointing. The enemy meant it for harm, but God meant it for authority. What was supposed to silence you forever became the very reason why your voice now carries weight in the spirit realm. Say it aloud, right now. I'm fireproofed for favor. Because the door that's about to open requires someone who can handle the heat of promotion without melting under the spotlight of scrutiny. And chosen one, that fire didn't just test you, it transformed you into exactly who that door has been waiting for. You know that feeling, don't you? When the same situation keeps showing up in your life like a broken record player, spinning the same painful song over and over again. The same rejection letter, the same financial crisis, the same relationship pattern, the same health scare, the same family drama that erupts every holiday season. You've been here before, haven't you, chosen one? Standing in this exact spot, feeling this exact frustration, wondering why God keeps allowing the same trial to circle back around like a vulture over roadkill. But what if I told you something that would shake you to your core? What if the very thing you keep running from is the very thing God is running you toward? You keep seeing the same rejection, not because you're unlucky, but because you haven't entered the fire that rejection is pointing to. You keep facing the same fear, not because you're weak, but because you haven't walked through the flame that fear is guarding. You keep hitting the same closed door, not because God is cruel, but because you haven't entered the furnace that door is protecting. Every loop you hate is a furnace you've refused to enter. Listen to me carefully. In Daniel chapter 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had a choice. Bow down to the golden image or face the fiery furnace. They could have avoided the fire. They could have compromised just a little. They could have whispered a quick prayer asking God to change their circumstances, but they didn't. They walked straight into the flames. And what happened? The fire didn't consume them, it consumed their chains. You see, God doesn't send you in circles to punish you. He sends you in circles to position you. Each time that same challenge shows up, it's not because you failed the last test. It's because you haven't yet chosen to enter the very fire that would set you free. You keep praying for God to remove the furnace, but God is waiting for you to enter it. Think about this for a moment. How many years have you been asking God to change your circumstances instead of asking Him to change you through them? How many decades have you spent trying to go around the mountain instead of through it? How long have you been treating the furnace like your enemy when it's actually your elevator? The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years, not because the promised land was too far away. It was an 11-day journey. They wandered for 40 years because they kept choosing comfort over calling. They kept choosing familiar slavery over fiery freedom. Are you doing the same thing right now? Every single person watching this message right now is facing their furnace. Some of you know exactly what it is. It's that conversation you've been avoiding with your spouse. It's that apology you've been too proud to make. It's that business you've been too scared to start. It's that healing you've been too embarrassed to pursue. It's that calling you've been too insecure to step into. Others of you have been so good at running that you've convinced yourself the furnace doesn't exist. You've become professional at spiritual bypassing, using prayer as procrastination, using faith as an excuse for fear. But here's what's going to break your heart and heal it at the same time. The very thing you've been avoiding is the very thing that contains your breakthrough. Joseph didn't become second in command of Egypt by avoiding the pit. He became powerful by surrendering to the process the pit represented. David didn't become king by running from Goliath. He became a giant killer by running toward the giant everyone else feared. What giant have you been running from that you need to run toward? What if that rejection you keep experiencing isn't God punishing you, but God preparing you? What if that financial pressure isn't a curse, but a crucible designed to burn away your fear of lack? What if that relationship conflict isn't a dead end, but a doorway to deeper intimacy and authenticity? You see, chosen one, God doesn't waste pain. He uses it. Every furnace in your life has been precisely calibrated to burn away everything that isn't you and leave behind everything that is. But here's the terrifying truth. You can circle that mountain forever. God will let you. He won't force you into the fire. He won't drag you kicking and screaming into your destiny. He'll wait. He'll let you choose comfort over calling for another year, another decade, another lifetime if you want. But the door you've been praying to open, it's on the other side of the furnace you've been avoiding. So let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. What have you been avoiding that keeps showing up disguised as delay? What conversation keeps presenting itself that you keep postponing? What fear keeps knocking on your door that you keep pretending isn't home? What calling keeps whispering your name that you keep acting like you can't hear? Because I promise you this, until you turn around and walk straight into that fire, you'll keep walking in circles. Until you stop trying to go around your furnace and start going through it, you'll keep wondering why the same problems keep showing up in different clothes. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But the definition of breakthrough is doing the thing you've been avoiding over and over again until it no longer has power over you. Comment: I know my furnace now. And if you're brave enough, if you're tired enough of the circles, if you're ready enough for the door to open, write what your furnace is. Because naming it is the first step to entering it. And entering it is the first step to everything you've been praying for. But there's something else you need to know about furnaces. Something that will either terrify you or set you free. You know what nobody tells you about surrender? It doesn't feel holy. It feels terrifying. Right now, as I speak these words, some of you are sitting there feeling that familiar knot in your stomach, that voice in your head whispering, what if God asks me to give up everything I've built? What if He calls me to something that terrifies me? What if following Him costs me more than I'm willing to pay? Chosen one, let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. You're absolutely right to be afraid. Because the God who loves you is the same God who is a consuming fire. When Moses climbed Mount Sinai, he didn't encounter a gentle grandfather figure with a white beard. Exodus 19 tells us the mountain was wrapped in smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The whole mountain trembled violently. The people were so terrified they begged Moses to speak to God for them because they were afraid they would die if they heard His voice directly. This is the same God knocking on the door of your comfort zone right now. You see, we've been sold a watered-down version of faith, a safe, sanitized spirituality that promises blessing without breaking, promotion without process, glory without the groan of transformation. But that's not the God of the Bible. That's not the God who split the Red Sea, who rained fire from heaven, who raised the dead. The real God? He's dangerous, beautifully, purposefully dangerous. When He shows up in your life, He doesn't come to make you comfortable. He comes to make you complete. And completion requires demolition of everything that isn't authentically you, every false identity, every protective wall. Every carefully constructed image you've spent decades building. That's why your heart is racing right now. That's why part of you wants to click away from this message. Because deep down, you know what I'm about to say is true. The one thing God is waiting for you to do, it's not pretty. It's not Instagram worthy. It's not something you can announce at church and get applause for. It's surrender. Complete, total, terrifying surrender. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think surrender means becoming weak, passive, a doormat for life to walk all over. Number biblical. Surrender is the most powerful force in the universe. It's you stepping out of the driver's seat so the creator of galaxies can take the wheel. Think about Abraham. God told him to sacrifice his only son, very child, through whom God's promises would be fulfilled. That wasn't gentle, that was devastating. But in that moment of ultimate surrender, when Abraham raised the knife, God provided the ram. The breakthrough came through the breaking point. Consider Job. God allowed everything to be stripped away: his wealth, his children, his health. His own wife told him to curse God and die. But Job's response? Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. And from that place of absolute surrender, God restored double what he had lost. Look at Jesus in Gethsemane. Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done. The Son of God himself struggled with surrender, but that surrender led to resurrection that changed the world forever. Now let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. What is God asking you to surrender that you're still gripping with white knuckles? Is it your need to control every outcome? Your reputation, your financial security, a relationship that's become an idol? Your plans for how your life should look? Whatever it is, your grip on it is the very thing keeping your breakthrough locked away. Hebrews 12:29 doesn't mince words. Our God is a consuming fire. Fire destroys, yes, but fire also purifies. It burns away the dross and leaves behind pure gold. The question is, are you willing to enter the furnace? Because here's what happens when you finally let go. When you stop fighting God for control and say, "Okay, Lord, have your way." That's when the impossible becomes inevitable. That's when doors that have been welded shut for decades suddenly swing wide open. But I won't lie to you, the process feels like dying, because it is. You're dying to the version of yourself that thought you could figure it all out alone. You're dying to the part of you that needed to be in control to feel safe. And in that death, something miraculous happens. You discover that the God you were afraid would hurt you is the same God who has been protecting you all along. The surrendered life isn't less than what you planned, it's infinitely more. God is not safe, but he is sovereign. He's not predictable, but he is faithful. He won't always give you what you want, but he will always give you what you need to become who he created you to be. Right now, I can sense some of you pulling back. Your mind is racing with excuses. This is too extreme. God wouldn't ask me to give up that much. I'll surrender, but not that. I'll follow him, but not there. But chosen one, partial surrender is just rebellion wearing a religious mask. The door you've been praying to open, it's not locked from the outside. It's barricaded from the inside by your refusal to fully trust the one who holds the keys to your destiny. So here's my challenge to you. If you're willing to enter the storm and trust his hand, if you're ready to stop negotiating with God and start surrendering to him, write these words in the comments. Even if it breaks me, I'm going. Because on the other side of that breaking, that's where your breakthrough has been waiting all along. The question isn't whether God is dangerous. The question is, are you brave enough to trust him anyway? Chosen one, I need you to see something that will change everything. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You're standing on the other side of obedience. The fire has done its work. The refining is complete. And you are unrecognizable from who you used to be. But here's what nobody tells you about transformation. It's not just about what gets burned away. It's about what emerges from the ashes. And what emerges will shock you. You see, right now you're afraid of the fire because you think it's going to destroy you. You think God is asking you to sacrifice everything good about yourself, everything familiar, everything safe. But that's the enemy's lie whispering in your ear. The fire isn't coming to destroy you, it's coming to reveal you. Malachi 3:3 says, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver." Do you know what happens when silver is refined? The impurities rise to the surface and burn away. But the silver, the pure, precious metal, becomes more valuable, more beautiful, more radiant than it ever was before. That's you on the other side of this fire, beloved, not less than who you are now. More. So much more. Let me paint you a picture of who you're becoming. You'll walk into rooms and the atmosphere will shift, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you carry the presence of the Most High. People will sense something different about you, something they can't quite name. You won't need to announce your authority because it will emanate from your very being. The insecurity that's been eating you alive, gone. The need to prove yourself to people who never deserved your energy in the first place, evaporated. The anxiety that kept you awake at 3 a.m., rehearsing conversations that never happened, silenced. You'll emerge glowing, chosen one, silent but radiant, not needing to prove anything to anyone because you'll finally really know who you are in Christ. You'll carry glory, not guilt, peace, not panic, confidence, not comparison. But here's where it gets really good. That door you've been praying about, crying about, losing sleep over it, won't just open for you. It will swing wide with such force that everyone around you will know this was God's doing. Not your networking, not your hustle, not your manipulation. Divine intervention. And the beautiful part, you won't even care about the applause anymore. You'll be so secure in your identity, so anchored in His love, that human validation will feel like fool's gold compared to the treasure you carry within. Think about Moses when he came down from Mount Sinai. Exodus 34-29 tells us his face was so radiant from being in God's presence that the Israelites couldn't even look at him directly. He had to wear a veil because the glory was too intense. That's what happens when you let God refine you. That's what waits on the other side of surrender. But I need to ask you something difficult. What are you more afraid of, staying exactly where you are for the next 5 years, or becoming so transformed that your old life doesn't fit you anymore? Because that's what's really happening here. You're not just asking God to open a door, you're asking Him to make you into someone who belongs on the other side of that door. And beloved, that person, that refined, purified, glorious version of you is going to be so different from who you are right now that it might terrify the people who knew the old you. Your family might not understand the new boundaries you set. Your friends might feel uncomfortable with the peace you carry. Your co-workers might be confused by your sudden lack of participation in gossip and drama. But you know what? That's their problem, not yours. The woman at the well met Jesus for 5 minutes and became an evangelist. The thief on the cross encountered grace in his final hours and stepped into paradise. Paul got knocked off his horse and became the greatest missionary in history. None of them stayed the same, none of them played it safe, and none of them regretted the transformation. So why are you hesitating? Why are you negotiating with God about the very thing that will set you free? Here's what I prophesy over your life right now. The door that's been sealed will not just open, it will become a gateway that leads to 10 more doors. The breakthrough you've been praying for will be so complete, so overwhelming, that you'll look back at this moment and weep with gratitude that you didn't settle for the counterfeit comfort of staying the same. You'll have favor that makes no sense, opportunities that you never applied for, resources that appear exactly when you need them, relationships that build you up instead of tearing you down, and a peace so profound that people will study your life trying to figure out your secret. But the most beautiful part, you'll finally understand why the wait was so long, why the process was so painful, why God couldn't give you what you wanted until you became who He needed you to be. Every tear you cried in secret was watering the soil of your destiny. Every disappointment was redirecting you towards something better. Every closed door was protecting you from settling for less than His best. The question is no longer whether God will open the door. The question is whether you'll trust Him to transform you into someone worthy of walking through it. Whisper this with me right now. I'm not afraid of who I'll become after this fire. Say it again. Mean it this time. Because, beloved, what's waiting for you on the other side isn't just an open door, it's a completely rewritten story, with you as the radiant, refined, unstoppable protagonist that God always intended you to be. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. That thing you walked away from, that place, that person, that dream you buried in the graveyard of your disappointments. It's not as dead as you think it is. You left, but it didn't leave you. Every night when you close your eyes, it whispers your name. Every morning when you wake up, there's that familiar ache in your chest that you can't quite explain. You thought distance would heal it. You thought time would silence it. But here's what nobody told you about unfinished business with God: it doesn't stay buried. When you left that place physically, emotionally, spiritually, you didn't just walk away. You left a part of you buried alive. And that part has been crying out from the grave, begging you to come back and resurrect what you abandoned. You see, there are 3 types of spiritual residue that keep doors locked in your life. The wound you never let God finish healing, the apology you never gave, and the dream you abandoned because you didn't see fruit fast enough. Let's start with that wound. You remember it, don't you? That betrayal that cut so deep you could taste the blood in your soul. That rejection that made you question if you were ever really loved. That failure that convinced you God had given up on you. You walked away from the altar before the healing was complete. You pulled your hand back just as the great physician was about to stitch up your heart. And now, 20 years later, 30 years later, you're still bleeding internally. You're still nursing that infection. You're still limping through life because you never let God finish what He started. You left, but it didn't leave you. Here's what Psalm 147:3 promises. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. But notice, this is an active process. God doesn't force healing on you. He waits for you to stay still long enough for Him to complete the surgery. But you got scared. You got impatient. You got tired of the pain of the process, and you ran. And every door you've approached since then has remained locked because you're still carrying that open wound into every new season. Then there's that apology you never gave. Oh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That person whose face just flashed in your mind right now. That relationship you destroyed with your pride, your anger, your stubborn refusal to say 2 simple words, "I'm sorry." You told yourself they didn't deserve an apology. You convinced yourself they were the problem. You built a fortress of justification around your heart and declared yourself the victim. But deep down, deeper than your pride wants to admit, you know the truth. You left them bleeding, and you left yourself bleeding too. Matthew 5:24 cuts straight to the heart. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Did you catch that? First go. Before you pray another prayer. Before you ask God for another blessing. Before you expect another door to open. You left, but it didn't leave you. That unfinished apology has been sitting in your spirit like a tumor, growing bigger every year. And every time you try to move forward, every time you reach for your breakthrough, that unforgiveness, not theirs, but yours, creates a spiritual blockage that chokes out your future. And then there's that dream. Oh, that dream that used to make your heart race. That vision that used to wake you up at 3 a.m. with holy excitement. That calling that felt so real you could taste it, touch it, breathe it. But months passed, years passed, and you didn't see the fruit you expected. The doors didn't open when you thought they should. The provision didn't come when you needed it most. So you did what most people do when God's timing doesn't match their timeline. You buried it alive. You convinced yourself it was just your imagination. You told yourself God changed His mind. You decided it was too late. You were too old, too broken, too far behind to ever resurrect what once made you feel most alive. But Habakkuk 2-3 thunders from heaven. The vision is yet for an appointed time. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. You left that dream to die in the desert of your impatience, but God never buried it. He's been keeping it alive, waiting for you to come back and breathe life into it again. You left, but it didn't leave you. Here's the shocking truth that's going to shatter every excuse you've built. God isn't punishing you with these closed doors. He's not being cruel or forgetful or indifferent. He's waiting for you to go back and finish the conversation you started. That healing session you walked out of. He's still in the operating room, waiting for you to get back on the table. That apology you never gave, he's still holding space for reconciliation. That dream you abandoned, he's still holding the blueprint, waiting for you to pick up where you left off. Every door in your future is connected to something you left unfinished in your past. And until you have the courage to go back, not to live there, but to complete what you started, you'll keep hitting walls that feel like concrete, but are really just spiritual checkpoints. This isn't about living in the past. This is about finishing what God began, so your future can finally begin. Right now, I'm asking you to do something that's going to take more courage than you think you have. In the comments below, I want you to type these exact words. I left it, but I'm going back to get it. Because somewhere in your past, there's a piece of your destiny waiting to be reclaimed, and God is about to show you exactly where you buried it. Chosen one, we need to talk about something that's going to cut deep. Something that's going to expose the real reason that door remains sealed shut in front of you. You remember that moment, don't you? That sacred instant when God whispered to your spirit and asked you to lay something down. Maybe it was a relationship that was slowly poisoning your soul. Maybe it was a dream that had become an idol. Maybe it was control over a situation you'd been white-knuckling for years. Maybe it was unforgiveness towards someone who shattered your heart into a million pieces. You remember walking to that altar in your spirit. You felt the weight of what God was asking. Your hands trembling as you placed it down. The sacrifice felt holy. It felt right. It felt like breakthrough was just a breath away. But then, silence. Days turned into weeks. Weeks crawled into months. And that thing you laid down, it started calling your name from the altar, whispering seductive lies. God didn't really mean forever. He just wanted to test your willingness. You can pick it back up now. You've proven your point. And dear one, you did exactly what most people do. You laid it down once, but when it didn't happen fast enough, you picked it back up. Let me take you to Mount Moriah. Genesis chapter 22. Abraham has walked for 3 days with his son Isaac, carrying fire and wood up the mountain. God has asked him to sacrifice the son of promise, the son he waited decades for, the son through whom all nations would be blessed. But here's what most people miss about this story. Abraham didn't just bring Isaac to the altar. He built the altar. He arranged the wood. He bound his son. And then, Scripture says, he raised the knife. He lifted that blade high above his head, ready to complete what God had asked. Not halfway, not partially, not with 1 foot on the altar and 1 foot in safety. He raised the knife. That's when heaven opened. That's when the angel called out. That's when the ram appeared in the thicket. That's when the blessing was released. But what if Abraham had stopped at just building the altar? What if he'd placed Isaac on the wood but never raised the blade? What if he'd done 95% of what God asked but held back that final 5%? The door would have stayed locked. Some of you are living in that 95%. You placed the promise on the wood, but you never let God ignite the flame. You showed up to the altar, but you kept the knife in your belt. You gave God your hurt, but kept nursing it in private. You surrendered your control, but still text your ex at 2 a.m. You laid down your pride, but still defend yourself in every conversation. You offered your unforgiveness, but still rehearse their wrongs in your mind every single day. Partial obedience still locks the door. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. God doesn't need your half-hearted offerings. He doesn't want your leftover surrender. He's not impressed by your 95% commitment. The kingdom of heaven operates on completion, not intention. You wonder why your breakthrough feels so close but so far. You wonder why you can sense blessing in the atmosphere but can't seem to grab hold of it. You wonder why every door you approach recognizes your face but won't respond to your knock. Because you're still carrying the knife instead of using it. Abraham's blessing didn't come when he decided to obey. It didn't come when he walked toward the mountain. It didn't even come when he built the altar. It came when he raised the knife, when he moved past decision into action, when he stopped negotiating with God and started completing what heaven had requested. The altar is not a museum piece, dear one. It's not a monument to your good intentions. It's a place of death. And until something actually dies there, it's just religious furniture. What are you still carrying that should have been slain months ago? What are you still protecting that God asked you to sacrifice? What are you still clutching in your fist while reaching toward heaven with the other hand? Your breakthrough is not delayed because God changed his mind. It's delayed because you changed yours. You decided that his timeline wasn't fast enough. You decided that his methods weren't clear enough. You decided that his silence meant permission to take back what you'd surrendered. But chosen one, here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. That thing you picked back up, it's heavier now. That burden you reclaimed, it's grown roots. That control you reclaimed, it's become a chain. And every day you delay returning to that altar, the knife gets heavier in your hand. Some of you reading this know exactly what I'm talking about. Your spirit is on fire right now because the Holy Spirit is highlighting that abandoned altar in your heart. You can see it clearly, covered with dust, overgrown with excuses, but still standing, still waiting. That door you've been praying would open. It's voice activated, but not by your pleading, not by your bargaining. It responds to the sound of complete surrender. It opens to the echo of the blade finally falling. The question that's burning in your chest right now is this: will you return to the altar you left too soon? Chosen one, we need to talk about something you've been carrying in silence. Something that weighs heavier than grief itself. Something that sits in your chest like cold stone every time you close your eyes. The ashes. Not the literal kind that scatter in the wind. I'm talking about the spiritual ashes, the remnants of dreams that died too young, relationships that crumbled in your hands, words you should have spoken but swallowed instead. The moments when God whispered, "Go," and you whispered back, "Not yet." Ashes don't speak in words, they speak in weight. And, dear friend, you've been carrying that weight for decades, haven't you? Every morning you wake up and feel it pressing against your ribs. Every night you lay down and it settles deeper into your soul. You've learned to live with it, to function around it, to smile despite it. But here's what's breaking my heart as I speak these words to you right now. The door you've been praying would open, the breakthrough you've been believing for. It hasn't come because the ashes haven't been answered. Your soul still hears the echo of what you ran from. Listen carefully. In Ezekiel 37, God took the prophet to a valley full of dry bones, not just bones, but bones that had been there so long they were bleached white by the sun, scattered by the wind, forgotten by time. And God asked Ezekiel a question that pierces through centuries to land right in your living room tonight. Can these bones live? Can these bones live? Can what died in you be resurrected? Can what you buried in shame be raised in glory? Ezekiel could have said, "Absolutely not, Lord. These bones are too dry, too old, too scattered." But instead, he said something that changed everything. "Lord God, you know. You know. Not I know. Not maybe. Not if conditions are right. You know." And then God did something that will make your spirit tremble. He commanded Ezekiel to prophesy to the bones, to speak to what looked dead, to call forth life from what everyone else had written off as waste. But here's what's crushing about your story, chosen one. God has been asking you to do the same thing. He's been whispering to your spirit, prophesy to your ashes, speak to what you buried, call forth what you thought was gone forever. And you've been silent. The door hasn't opened because the ashes haven't been answered. What happened to that call you felt in your 20s? The one that made your heart race and your hands shake with holy anticipation? Where did you bury that dream when people told you it was unrealistic, when circumstances seemed impossible, when failure felt safer than faith? What about that relationship you walked away from, not because it was wrong, but because it required more vulnerability than you could bear? The person you loved but couldn't risk losing, so you chose distance over depth? And that voice, oh, that voice God gave you, the one that could speak life into dying souls, comfort into broken hearts, hope into impossible situations. When did you decide it wasn't enough? When did you let criticism silence what heaven had anointed? Your soul still hears the echo of what you ran from. Every time you see someone else walking in the calling you abandoned, don't you feel that sharp twist in your chest? Every time you witness the love you were too afraid to fight for flourishing in someone else's hands, doesn't something inside you whisper, that should have been me? The tragedy isn't that you made the wrong choice. The tragedy is that you think it's too late to make the right one. In Joel 2:25, God makes a promise that should shatter every excuse you've built. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten, not just the dreams, the years, not just the opportunities, the time itself. But restoration requires something from you. It requires you to stop pretending the ashes don't hurt. It requires you to stop smiling when your spirit is screaming. It requires you to do what Ezekiel did, prophesy to what looks dead. The door hasn't opened because the ashes haven't been answered. What have you mourned in silence that God is asking you to speak again? That book you were supposed to write, the one that would have changed lives, brought healing, shifted atmospheres. It's not too late. Your arthritis, your tired eyes, your "I'm too old now" excuses are just noise. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. That ministry you felt called to, the one you buried under "I don't have the education" or "I'm not qualified enough." God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Your scars are your credentials. Your pain is your platform. That person you were supposed to love, maybe they're gone now. Maybe it's too late for that specific relationship. But the capacity to love deeply, to risk everything for connection, to choose courage over comfort, that's still alive in you. And somewhere, someone is praying for exactly the kind of love you're afraid to give. Your soul still hears the echo of what you ran from. Here's what God is saying to you right now, in this very moment, as my words penetrate the walls you've built around your heart. The ashes you've been carrying are not monuments to failure. They are seeds waiting for resurrection. Every regret is a doorway back to purpose. Every what if is an invitation to what now. Every piece of your broken heart is raw material for someone else's healing. But you have to speak to the ashes. You have to prophesy to what looks dead. You have to believe that the God who breathed life into dust can breathe purpose back into your pain. The door hasn't opened because the ashes haven't been answered. Stop carrying them in silence. Stop mourning in secret. Stop tiptoeing around the grave of what you think you lost forever. Speak to it. Call it forth. Prophesy resurrection over what fear buried alive. If something is stirring in your spirit right now, if these words are hitting places in your soul you thought were permanently closed, type this with trembling fingers: I still hear it, and I'm listening now. Because, chosen one, God isn't asking you to resurrect the past. He's asking you to birth the future that was always waiting on the other side of your obedience. And that future, that calling, that door you've been praying would open, It's been waiting for you to stop running from the ashes and start speaking to them instead. The echo you hear isn't condemnation, it's invitation, and your answer. Your answer will determine everything. Chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred encounter, I want you to remember 3 unshakable truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, that door you've been staring at, it was never locked to keep you out. It was sealed to keep you safe until you became the person who could handle what's on the other side. God's delays are not denials, they are divine preparations. Second, the one thing God is asking you to do, that step of obedience you've been avoiding, it's not as impossible as fear has made it seem. Every giant looks smaller when you remember who fights beside you. Every mountain moves when you speak with the authority of heaven backing your voice. And third, transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen one choice at a time. Every moment you choose faith over fear, every time you choose to move forward instead of staying stuck, you're becoming the version of yourself that doors recognize and heaven celebrates. But hear me clearly, you are not walking this path alone. While you've been struggling in silence, thinking no one understands your battle, God has been orchestrating a symphony of support around you. He's been positioning people to pray for you before you even know you need it. He's been preparing provision before you realize you lack it. He's been working in the darkness so that when you finally step into the light, everything will be ready. And right here, in this community, you have thousands of spiritual family members who understand your journey because they're walking it too. We are not just viewers of each other's testimonies, we are intercessors in each other's breakthroughs. So I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. What would your life look like 1 year from today if you finally said yes to what God has been asking? What doors would be open? What dreams would be alive? What version of yourself would be staring back at you in the mirror? That future isn't just possible, it's promised. But it requires one thing, your yes. Before we close, I want to pray over you with the tenderness of a pastor who has walked this road and the authority of someone who has seen God move mountains for his children. A prayer of blessing and breakthrough. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. Lord, they didn't stumble here by accident. You guided them here because you have something specific you want to birth in their lives. Father, I pray for the one who is scared to take that first step. Wrap your arms around their fear and replace it with supernatural courage. Remind them that you have never called anyone to a battle. You haven't already equipped them to win. I pray for the one who feels too old, too late, too broken. Lord, you specialize in resurrection. You breathe life into dry bones and call forth beauty from ashes. Let them feel your hand upon their shoulder right now, whispering, your best days are not behind you, they are ahead of you. For the one drowning in doubt, questioning if they really heard your voice, I pray for divine confirmation. Send them signs they cannot miss, doors they cannot deny, and peace that passes all understanding. God, break every chain of procrastination, every spirit of delay, every whisper of maybe tomorrow. Let today be the day that everything shifts. Let this be the moment they look back on and say, that's when my life changed forever. I pray blessing over their families, protection over their dreams, provision for their vision, and supernatural acceleration over their timeline. What was meant to take years, let it happen in months. What seemed impossible, make it inevitable. And Lord, let every person who moves in obedience after hearing this word become a testimony that encourages someone else. Let their courage create a ripple effect that reaches the ends of the earth. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Now, chosen one, I want you to do something powerful. In the comments below, share one thing this message stirred in your heart. It doesn't have to be long or eloquent, just honest. Maybe it's, I'm ready to take that step. Maybe it's, I needed to hear this today. Maybe it's, pray for me. Whatever it is, share it. Because when you put words to what God is doing in your spirit, you're not just commenting, you're declaring, and declarations have power. If this message blessed you, if it confirmed something God has been whispering to your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's someone in your circle, a family member, a friend, a co-worker, who is standing at their own closed door, wondering if God still cares. Be the vessel He uses to remind them they are not forgotten. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. This isn't just about building a platform, it's about building a family. A community of chosen ones who refuse to walk alone, who celebrate each other's victories and pray through each other's battles. Thank you for giving me an hour of your precious time. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for being part of this movement of believers who refuse to settle for less than God's best. Remember, you are chosen, you are loved, you are equipped. And that door? It's about to open. Until we meet again, keep your eyes on heaven and your feet moving forward. God's not done with your story yet. God's chosen ones, God said, until you do this one thing, no door will ever open. Are you tired of praying the same prayers and hearing nothing but silence? Have you been knocking on doors that refuse to budge while watching others walk through theirs effortlessly? Do you wake up each morning wondering if God has forgotten your address, if your breakthrough got lost in heaven's mail? Chosen one, if you're hearing these words right now, stop, put down whatever you're doing. This is not another religious video that accidentally appeared in your feed. This is a divine interruption. Heaven just hijacked your scroll because your spirit has been crying out for answers, and God is about to respond. You didn't stumble onto this message. You were summoned here, by name, by divine appointment. This is your burning bush moment disguised as a casual click. Here's a shocking truth that will shatter everything you thought you knew about breakthrough. You've been standing in front of the right door your entire life. The door to your destiny, your calling, your miracle. It's been there all along. But it won't open. Not because God is cruel, not because you're unworthy, but because you haven't done the one thing that unlocks it. The same God who parted the Red Sea for Moses, who opened prison doors for Paul, who rolled away the stone for Jesus. That same God has been whispering something to your spirit, something you've been avoiding, something that feels too hard, too scary, too vulnerable. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. But listen carefully, what I'm about to reveal will disturb every comfortable prayer you've ever prayed. It will challenge every maybe someday excuse you've whispered to yourself in the dark. If something in your spirit is already stirring, if you feel that holy fire burning in your chest, type 999 in the comments right now. That's not superstition. That's spiritual agreement. That's you telling heaven, I'm ready to hear the hard truth. Because God is not waiting for your perfection. He's not waiting for you to get your life together. He's waiting for you to do this one thing, this one act of obedience that will make every closed door in your life swing wide open. Until you do it, no door will ever open. And chosen one, your time is running out. Why does it feel like God answers everyone's prayers except yours? Why do you watch others walk effortlessly through doors that remain sealed shut in your face? Why has your breakthrough been just around the corner for what feels like a lifetime. Chosen one, I need you to hear something that might sting at first, but will ultimately set you free. That silence you've been interpreting as rejection, it's not what you think. That delay you've been calling abandonment, it's actually preservation. And those unanswered prayers you've been questioning, they're being held in heaven's vault until you become the person who can handle the answer. You see, dear one, you've been knocking on a door that's voice-activated, but it only responds to the right frequency, the right version of you.